Welcome to Mindful with Minaa, where we explore how mindfulness can enhance your relationships and well-being. I'm your host, Minaa B, a licensed social worker, mental health educator, and author. Through insightful discussions, I will guide you towards self-awareness and self-efficacy, empowering you to effectively manage your relationships, reduce burnout, and be more present with yourself. So let's jump into today's episode. What's up, Mindful community? Welcome back to another episode of Mindful with Minaa. I'm your host, Minaa B, and today I'm going to talk to you about something that's deeply ingrained in our culture, but often overlooked when it comes to mental well-being, and that is cutting back on alcohol. Now, I know dry January is over, but that doesn't mean that you can't be dry for the rest of the year. So I want to talk about alcohol because a lot of us don't realize the impact it has on our mental health, but I also know alcohol is everywhere. It's at social gatherings, happy hours, celebrations, and sometimes treat yourself moments or self-care days might include moments of drinking wine or just having a cocktail. And while drinking may be normalized, it does have an impact on our mental health that is often underestimated. So, today's episode, I'm going to share with you how alcohol affects your brain and your mood, its connection to mental health disorders like anxiety and depression. And please understand that this episode is all about cutting back and using a harm reduction approach because not everyone is ready to quit completely. And some people may feel like they don't need to quit it completely, and that is okay. So I want to talk about how alcohol affects your mental health because it does a lot to your brain. The first thing to understand is that alcohol is a depressant, which means it slows down the central nervous system. So while it may initially make you feel more relaxed or more social, over time, alcohol can disrupt brain chemistry, making anxiety, depression, and other mental health symptoms worse. So to help you understand the science behind how all of that works, the first thing is it alters neurotransmitters. So alcohol affects serotonin and dopamine, and these are two chemicals that are responsible for regulating mood. This is why drinking might feel good in the moment, but often leads to emotional lows afterwards, especially if you're binge drinking, or maybe you feel like you need to drink to be the life of the party, and next thing you know, you crash. That is because alcohol is messing with those two receptors. And so pay attention to your mood and how that becomes dysregulated after you drink. Another thing is it increases anxiety, aka anxiety. If you ever wake up after a night of drinking feeling super anxious, that is because alcohol messes with GABA, a neurotransmitter that helps calm the nervous system. Once the alcohol wears off, the body overcompensates, leading to heightened anxiety, and this is why we might call it anxiety. So this is another thing to pay attention to. Do you find yourself having heightened anxiety after even just one drink or two drinks or five? Then this is what's happening to your body. So pay attention. Another thing is it disrupts sleep. I talked about a lack of sleep and what a lack of sleep can do to our mental health in last week's episode. And it's important to know that even if alcohol makes you feel sleepy, it does reduce REM sleep, which is the deep restorative sleep your brain needs to process emotions and function properly. Poor sleep is directly linked to increased stress, anxiety, and depression. So it's just important to pay attention to the correlation between your sleep disruption as well as your alcohol consumption. The other thing is that it exacerbates depression. So while alcohol may numb difficult emotions in the short term, studies show that heavy drinking increases the risk of developing depression. People with depression who drink heavily often experience more severe symptoms and slower recovery. Now, I named a few things that can happen to your body. I also want to be clear that some of these things happen to some people, and there are some people who don't experience these things at all. Remember, there is no one size fits all approach to how our bodies react to certain things, I think it is clear that we can say alcohol just in itself is not healthy. But like I said, this is about harm reduction. This is not about saying you have to eliminate alcohol from your life forever. This is also not to make the assumption that if you drink alcohol, that means you have an unhealthy relationship to alcohol. That is not what this episode is about. So it's really important to just pay attention to how alcohol makes you feel, the frequency of how much you drink, also the reasons why you may drink. So if you've been feeling more anxious, irritable, or even emotionally drained, it might be worth looking at your relationship to alcohol and thinking about some of the things that I just listed and how it can be impacting you. Now, when I talk about harm reduction, this is all about cutting back, not necessarily quitting. You don't have to quit alcohol completely to experience the benefits of it. Harm reduction is an approach that focuses on reducing negative effects rather than forcing all or nothing thinking. What that means is some people might choose to stop drinking entirely, and that is great for them. But for others, moderation is a more realistic and sustainable goal. When I talk about all or nothing thinking, what I mean by that is there are times where we say to ourselves, if you have a drink, that means you're an alcoholic. That's actually not true. There are people who can have one drink and be totally fine. As I said before, we do know that there really are no health benefits to drinking alcohol, but you can drink alcohol in a moderated way and in a sustainable way to still make sure that you are taking care of your body, your physical well-being, your mental well-being, as well as your emotional well-being. So here are some strategies that you can use if you want to cut back in a way that feels manageable. First, set clear intentions. Ask yourself, why do I want to drink less? Is it to reduce anxiety, to sleep better, improve your mood? I want you to write down your reasons so that you can revisit them when needed as a way to remind yourself, oh, this is why I skipped out on having that cocktail during dinner. This is why I'm going to skip out on happy hour. If I do go to happy hour, I'm just going to order the mocktails and not the cocktails. The second thing I want you to do is practice mindful drinking. So instead of drinking on autopilot, pause and ask yourself, do I actually want this drink or is it just a habit? Also ask yourself, how will I feel tomorrow or even in a few hours actually? How will I feel in 2 hours? How will I feel in 5 hours? And how will I feel tomorrow if I drink this? Try rating your cravings on a scale of 1 to 10. If it's below a 5, see if you can replace alcohol with something else. There are great mocktail recipes. And if sometimes I also find that drinking is habitual because it creates this sense of relaxation for some people. Just the idea of drinking out of a wine glass can help us, or at least create this illusion that we are resting and rejuvenating. And so sometimes I personally will literally make a mocktail in a wine glass. One of my favorite mocktails is called a Lime Ricky, and it's literally just club soda, lime juice, and simple syrup. And when I make this, I pour it in a wine glass and I sit there and I act like I'm drinking a mojito, okay? Like, I really enjoy drinking out of a wine glass sometimes. And especially when I'm working, there are times where I used to drink a glass of wine while writing, and that was a habit for me. Oh, I'm sitting down to write, time to have a glass of wine. And then I realized, I don't want to always have a glass of wine every time I'm writing. But I really do enjoy the feeling that comes with having a glass of wine while writing. So instead of having wine, I now have my Lime Ricky. I have my mocktail in my wine glass, and that replaces the alcohol, but it still helps me to engage in the habit of having some type of drink with me while writing. Another thing that you can do is set drinking limits. So decide ahead of time how many drinks you'll have in a night or per week. So pay attention, for example, to your social schedule. If you are going to go on 3 dinner dates this week, are you going to have a drink during all 3 dinner dates? Or are you going to say, you know what, maybe I'll have a drink the first date, but the next 2 dinner dates I have, no alcohol for me. That's a way that you can pay attention to your schedule, because there are some people who may not drink when they're home, but you might find that you drink often when you're socializing. So pay attention to how often you're socializing and figure out, okay, when I go to dinner, I'm going to drink, but I'm going to skip out on mimosas during brunch, or vice versa. If I can't skip out on only mimosas because it makes the brunch experience fun for me, then that's all I'm going to have for the week, because all of the other social outings that I'm going to, I want to make sure I'm minimizing my alcohol consumption. So that's one of the things that you can be thinking about. Another one is use smaller glasses or just alternate between alcoholic and non-alcoholic beverages. There are so many filling up the market right now. Gen Z has paved the way for folks who do not want to drink anymore or just want to minimize how much they drink. And we are seeing a surplus of mocktails everywhere we go. Companies are now switching to different ingredients so that they can produce more products that are mocktails and don't have alcohol in them versus having alcohol. Like, a lot of alcohol companies are figuring out what alternatives can they create. So there's so many options available now. And there are some mocktails that have adaptogens infused with them that also provide you with like a calming effect while drinking the mocktails. So there are so many things on the market now that I encourage you to play around with, figure out what you like, and just be willing to try something new. Another thing you can do is plan alcohol-free days. Start with 1 or 2 alcohol-free days per week and increase from there. So if you drink every single day, maybe you're going to say, I'm only going to drink Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and maybe I'll take off Friday, Saturday. Just figure out what works for you during the week, and also figure out your mood and your schedule and how that plays a role in your desire to drink. Because that might be a time where you say, my Sundays are super busy. I find myself winding down with a glass of wine at the end of the day. So instead, I'm going to make sure I have my mocktail ready for me. Another thing is, if you have to change your social habits, that is okay. If drinking is tied to socializing, plan activities that don't center around alcohol. You can go to brunch and try to have a different item on the menu that doesn't include mimosas. I'm sure it can be hard to go to a restaurant and not see alcohol on the menu. I don't think that is going to happen, but that might mean making different choices. So if you go to brunch and you're used to ordering mimosas, what does it look like for you to order a different drink? Instead of socializing and saying to your friends, let's go to happy hour, are there other things that are happening for you? I set this rule for myself this year, actually, that I am really tired of going on dinner dates. It's just gotten to a point where I feel like I am eating out too much, just because I do a lot of networking. And I try to socialize a lot. I am really big on co-regulation. I love being around people. I love hanging out with my friends. But I realized last year that I was going to dinner maybe like 4 to 6 times a month. I felt like every week I had a dinner planned. And there were times where I would have a dinner planned back to back. And I was just like, this is tiring. This is expensive. And this is not helping me with a lot of my goals. So I made a goal this year that when I socialize with friends, I want to do activity-based things versus having dinner. I mean, come on, how many dinners can you have in a month? I'm just at a place where I'm like, I don't need any more dinners, please. So I actually went out with a friend about a month ago and we went roller skating, and I haven't gone roller skating in so long, and it was so much fun. I remember buying a pair of skates during the pandemic. I did some skating classes, and y'all, those skates have been sitting in my closet collecting dust for the last 4 years. So when my friend actually recommended, let's go roller skating, I was like, oh my God, this is perfect, because I had already expressed that, like, I'm trying to do more activities versus going out to dinner. So if there are things that you see, whether you're scrolling on social media, if you have a bucket list of things that you want to do, share it with me, because I'm trying to be more adventurous. I want to pick up hobbies, but I also just want to socialize in a different way. So this can be a fun way to remove activities that are very centered around drinking. The next thing is, this is important for people who feel like they really, really want to cut back on drinking immensely throughout the week. Have an exit strategy. If you're in a social setting and you're starting to feel pressured to drink and you're hearing responses like, oh, why don't you drink? You should try it. This is good. It's okay to say things like, I'm taking a break from alcohol. You can say, I have an early morning tomorrow. I really don't want the alcohol to upset my stomach or interfere with my sleep. You can also just simply say, I don't want to drink right now. Okay? That's it. That's your answer. I don't want to drink tonight. Okay? And so I hope all of these methods help you when it comes to managing your alcohol consumption and figuring out what works for you when it comes to drinking less and improving your mental health. Because when you cut back on alcohol, you're not just avoiding hangovers, you're creating space for better mental health. So, some of the improvements you might notice is better sleep. Your body can enter deeper sleep cycles, leaving you more refreshed. You may also experience less anxiety and depression. Your brain chemistry stabilizes, reducing emotional ups and downs. You can also feel more energized. Alcohol depletes essential nutrients, so cutting back often leads to increased energy. Another thing is improved emotional regulation, because without alcohol numbing emotions, you gain better tools to process them and deal with them. So, to give you a little data, studies actually show that reducing alcohol intake, even without quitting it completely, leads to improved mental health outcomes and lower levels of stress. So, here's the thing, the goal isn't perfection, it's awareness. Cutting back on alcohol can have profound effects on your mental well being, even if it's just a few small changes at a time. So, today, I challenge you to try one of these strategies. Maybe it's a mocktail in a wine glass while you rejuvenate after work. Maybe it's setting a drinking limit and figuring out how many drinks you're going to have for the week. Or it could just be being more mindful about how alcohol makes you feel. So, thank you for tuning into this episode. If this episode resonated with you, please make sure to rate and review this podcast wherever it is that you listen to your podcast. And you can also connect with me by reviewing all of my details in the description box. If you are a resident of New York and you are interested in working with a therapist, you can book a consultation with me so that we can get started on your healing journey. You can also follow me on social media, order my book, Owning Our Struggles, and make sure you tune into other episodes of Mindful with Minaa so that you can have access to other tools to take care of your mental health. And so, as always, be sure to take care of yourself and to be kind to yourself. Until next time.